Hi, everyone. This is Melissa from Encore. Thanks for joining our webinar today. It's Boost In-House and Remote Work Efficiency, How to Go Paperless in All Your Departments. So today, we've invited Perry Lynn and Mark from Altec to show you DocLink, the document manage and process automation solution that's integrated with your Dynamics ERP. So we'd like this to be an interactive session, so we encourage you to type any questions you may have into the question pane, and we will address those at the end. In addition, we'll be doing a little bit of polling to help engage and better understand your needs. So with that, I'm going to turn the webinar over to Perry Lynn to get it started.
Thank you, Melissa. I sure appreciate that. Well, let's take a look at what our roadmap is for today. So I thought I'd cover a couple different concepts on why even contemplate going paperless, and then we'll review what I like to call some of the DocLink fundamentals, and then we're going to take you through a couple different examples of how you can use DocLink all in your companies today. And then we'll sprinkle in some customer success stories as we go about our business here today. But let's kind of start things off by our very first poll, because I'm really curious as to what brought you to today's session. So let's see, Melissa, can we initiate that first poll? And then I'm going to ask all of the audience out there today to please participate. And that way you'll not only get to express what's going on in your organization, but you'll be able to see, if there's a little bit of a trend, amongst all of your, other shared companies that are out there listening to today's information. All right, so what are the biggest challenges working either in office or remote? Is it about accessing those critical documents and the information? Or is the issues more centered around manual and inefficient approval processes? Or it may be that you're struggling having to compile everything together in order to send out to someone, whether that's either you're emailing it out today or even compiling paperwork. It could be that invoice processing and expense reports are, really causing you a lot of angst. And it could be that you have other areas in the organization. And if you pick other, maybe chat back to us and let us know kind of what that other area represents. So, Melissa, let me come back to you. And let's take a look and see what's going on in the poll. Did you get some responses?
I did, yeah. So really it's spread pretty evenly across the board, except for C. Nobody answered retrieving and collating backup documents for delivery, but A, B, and D, and E kind of evenly spread.
A, B, D, and E. All right. Well, then let's kind of dive into all of these different areas, and we'll kind of show you how DocLink can provide greater visibility and management of documents, and of course, then all of the transactions as well. And thanks for reporting back on the trends. All right, Melissa. So here's what I'm thinking. We had reached out to Gartner, and they produced a report based on what's happening on organizations today and what's happening in terms of companies returning to work or remaining remote. And so it's interesting to see that 74% of companies are going to make a permanent shift to more remote work. Now that has slightly different implications across the board, but the point is that we need as organizations to be agile in our access to documents and joining documents to the right people in the process, and really enabling the remote workforce to have access to the information to do their work. And that's not going to change. We're going to see that continuing to expand, as we move forward. And that's really why we wanted to talk about DocLink today and share with you how you can use DocLink in order to enable your organizations to have that very easy access to documents. Restricted by security, of course, so only the right people have access to the right documents. And you can now connect everything digital, connecting the right people to the right process, to the right document, and really achieve the business goals that you are having at hand today. So let me introduce you a little bit to DocLink and what DocLink can do. And so DocLink as a product is all about connecting the documents with the process, right, in order to streamline operations and deliver documents out to the right people. And that can be either internally, like an approval process, or externally when we start talking about delivering documents to customers as well. And then I want to also share with you how DocLink works. This is really fundamental because if you understand how DocLink works, then it makes it really simple for you to apply these concepts to anywhere in the organization. And that's part of the beauty of DocLink, is that truly is an enterprise-wide solution. So even if you came today to learn more about maybe accounts payable, once you understand how it works, you can transcend all areas of the organization wherever people are experiencing paper-based bottlenecks. So let's kind of look at these fundamentals. So step number one is, what is that document and how is that document produced today? And if we understand those questions, then it makes it very simple to deploy one of the technologies to capture that document. You know, is that document coming in via email so we can grab it right from email, or maybe even layer on some sophisticated OCR to grab not only the document but the data right off that document? Is it produced in your financial accounting system? We can grab that automatically today as well. So there's a lot of possibilities in terms of capturing documents. And then once we have that document in DocLink, now we can do something with it. So the next question is, how does that document move in your organization today? And by that, we're looking at using DocLink's workflow engine, which is a highly configurable, very powerful workflow engine that can route that document, sometimes even leveraging rules, maybe by dollar amount or vendor, through a particular approval process. And then that leads us to the next question is, does it need to impact your ERP or financial accounting application? And there's a great two-way sync. So it's all about not only pushing the document and the data into your ERP application, but if you make changes, then it also can tie that document back. And you can also view the document right from within that financial accounting application as well. And also view the document in DocLink in many different ways, through the desktop application, through the web, through mobile. So it really gives a lot of agility in terms of accessing documents. And then way down there at the bottom, not maybe as much of a focus today, but we can absolutely collate documents together and send them out automatically. So whether that's on the purchase order side out to a vendor, maybe joining that up with some supporting documents, or more traditionally on the accounts receivable side when we're sending out invoices to customers. And the magic is joining it up with supporting documents. That's where kind of that win is there. So that really gives you the bird's eye view of how DocLink works. And now we're going to dive into how it works in these different business processes. So let's cover accounts payable first, and then we'll go into all the other areas. And you might want to know, like, why? Why is it that we always start in accounts payable? And I think it's simply because there is so much paper or documents in accounts payable. And those documents need to travel, around the organization for the purposes of approval. So why should we bother automating AP? Well, number one, it's about self-service document access, and allowing approvers to have easy access, to allow vendors to even have access to a portal if you like, and really drive time savings by eliminating the filing routines of paper-based documents or attaching out to a network file share, and also minimizing data entry. And then, of course, that all dovetails into the strategic win for your organizations, which is usually about saving cost or growing without having to add headcount. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at a traditional accounts payable process. So if you just think for a moment about what you're doing in AP today, it might look very similar to this, where an invoice comes in, and then, of course, you're maybe opening up the mail, unless it's coming in through email. You might be physically matching it to the purchase order. You might be then routing it through the approval cycle, maybe applying some codes if it's a non-PO-based invoice, checking against budget. It comes back to AP, and you're physically doing the ERP entry, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? Now, what would it mean to your organization if you could really collapse this process and really no longer have to do every single step, in a manual way, but leverage technology to make this automated and much more efficient. So this is what we're suggesting, is that with DocLink, you have an opportunity to really remove a lot of the steps in the process, and leverage automation in order to be able to achieve those. And then, of course, really drive productivity in your organization. So when we think about the benefits, we kind of think about, well, it's all about not only eliminating the paper, right, if some people are still dealing with paper today, but it's more about looking at the actual process and driving efficiency in the process. So if you are doing a rubber stamp and writing coding information on documents, that goes away. If you're routing documents through a manual kind of email process, we're able to automate that and make it much more visible to the end user and make it easier for them to do an approval and have that continue on in the approval process. And we're, of course, able to easily push that information into your financial accounting application, and that's an out-of-the-box integration, and that's really powerful as well. So what I want to do at this point is let's transition over to Mark and have Mark take us through, what does that look like? What does it look like from the end user's perspective? And he can hit on some of those highlights for you. So I think, Mark, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the button to change presenter. So I'm doing that right now. And so now you have been made the presenter. And so hopefully that will give you an opportunity to showcase your screen and then take us through kind of a little sample demonstration. All right, so right now we see your screen. We're actually in blue background and a chat window. Now we see DocLink. There we go.
Yeah, I misclicked that button, which is, super important to actually show what we want to show, right? So we'll appreciate that. And, as we talked about that process, what I want to demonstrate is DocLink's ability to really work with the ERP, and that could be anything. It could be Dynamics GP, AX, NAV, SL. It doesn't really matter. DocLink's integration is really across the board on the Dynamics side. It's a pretty comprehensive bi-directional integration. But when we talk about the AP automations, really it's we want to digitize first. So the capturing of documents, there may be different documents we want to capture along that process: purchase orders, packing slips, invoices, physical check, but digitize that. And DocLink is really great at taking all those physical documents and making them digital. So what I thought I'd do is start with a purchase order. This process really doesn't change because the PO entry lives in GP. And I'm using GP as an example, but again, we talked about all the other ERPs that can be integrated into DocLink seamlessly. The process stays the same from an end user, and the only difference is there's no physical printing of that purchase order. We still go and print. We just choose a different printer. When I go to that process, now, GP makes, those of you familiar, makes you go through a few steps here to choose that printer. Okay, that's great. We choose a special printer that digitally captures that document in the DocLink, and we click on print. That takes that document, that print spool, goes over into DocLink and captures it automatically. So the end result is a digital document with all the metadata that we may have had to manually type in along the way. If we were doing this, storing documents as a file system on an S drive or something like that, or dealing with that physical piece of paper and we have no visibility into that metadata. Well, the DocLink has all that for us. With a click of the button, that print capture brings that document in, and all the metadata now lives on the side. All these property values are searchable, retrievable, and we're actually going to use this in future steps to do an actual three-way or two-way match when the packing slip comes in and we receive it. Add that PO number on it, quickly index it, bring that packing slip into the digital repository. And when the invoice comes in, we can utilize the same information to do that matching again. So when we pull in the invoice, we can actually do automated three-way matching. So if PO number 2110 for one line item, 10 widgets at whatever cost matches with what we received, invoice comes in with that exact amount, boom, 100% three-way match, completely automated throughout that process. A lot of documents are going to do that. They're going to automate all the way through 100% match. However, if they don't, which is, real life, we're going to stop that process. And during the invoice, as it gets pulled in and onboarded, OCR is going to read that invoice and all the data that comes from it. Now, let's say it was off by a little bit. We have, in this case, PO number 2084. We don't find a match anywhere. It throws an exception. It sends an email to a user. User comes in here and manages that exception. Same thing all the way down to the line item level, which is really cool. We can go back into the ERP information. So we have the PO data. We have what was received on the packing slip. And let's say, for example, we were billed 10 times as much for that line item than we were supposed to. Well, the system is going to know this immediately, stop that document from being automatically processed, and we can see what it's doing behind the scenes to say, great, we've deviated from what we expect by 10 times, and it's going to throw an exception, and the user is going to come in here, fix it, and do whatever you do to get the correct invoice. Maybe just throw it out, go back to your supplier, and get a new invoice that's actually accurate so we can do that match. So really powerful stuff, high level of what OCR can do, but really the main idea here is these are all clicks and matching of documents, physical paper that you no longer have to do. OCR is really doing that heavy lifting, and that's a cliched word, and I hate using it, but it makes the most sense that, taking data and validating it with what's already in the ERP, that's your vendor number, vendor name, phone number, so on and so forth. Other data that's dynamic. So think invoice number, date, total amount, line item information. It's intelligent enough to know that, hey, invoice pound is the same thing as invoice number, INV pound, whatever it is. And let's look around that area for that invoice number that's most likely that invoice number. Well, this could be floating on the page anywhere. It could be over the top left, bottom left. We have some intelligence into this, so it's a smart capture functionality that doesn't necessarily matter. It can be anywhere on the page, and the system's smart enough to realize, yep, this is our invoice number, grab it, here's our date, grab it. Again, data that you no longer have to manually enter, which is just going to save you a massive amount of time while going digital at the same time. What happens next? Well, those documents flow into a flow process. So if, let's say, we have a non-PO based invoice, if there's some dollar value limits, or we need to send it out and decentralize it to department heads for approval, we can do that throughout the DocLink workflow. This is really just a mimic of your business process. Now, again, we talked about the PO matching. We're going to automate that, import it directly into your ERP behind the scenes without you really having to do anything. So there's not really a whole lot to show there. So I want to focus on this approval process to give you an idea of the power of auto routing digital documents first, and why it's important in a system like this to save you a massive amount of time. First of which is what we call a distribution stamp. This is really mimicking the payables transaction entry screen, or really where you're creating your vouchers for those invoices in the ERP. We're going to automate bringing all that data forward. So OCR did this for us. We don't have to re-enter that. That'd be a waste of time. So DocLink is going to pull forward all the data that we care about. We're going to put a default value based on what ERP data we have to automatically GL code this. And we could distribute this out more if we needed to. Not all invoices just have one line. They could have 2 or 10 or 20. Well, DocLink can add as many lines as you want to distribute that out as well. When we're done with this coding process, we can automate this to send to the correct approver the first time without even having to think about it. Think of taking that physical piece of paper, walking it down the office, or scanning it, sending an email out to someone. Well, all that goes away with DocLink, because what we can do is just single click auto route. DocLink is going to look at any of the property values that we care about and direct that document in a second to the correct approver instantaneously. And we want to make sure that that approver isn't going to be sitting in DocLink just waiting there. That would be a waste of their time. So we can send an email notification out to that user stating, hey, you have some documents waiting for you. Go ahead and take care of them. Could look something like this, where and actually, as we're talking, a document has just come in for us. So that's how quickly an approver gets that visibility into those documents. Right? So no bottlenecking of documents. Those documents, instead of sitting on someone's desk waiting, maybe they're gone for a week out on vacation. Documents are now visible within DocLink, within email, so the users are instantaneously notified waiting for them. So they could click into a workflow so they can do their own geocoding if you do it that way. They could just simply approve or deny documents directly from email. So a single click literally could not be any easier for them to approve or deny documents, which really alleviates that bottlenecking of a document sitting on a desk. So you might actually be able to take advantage of early pay discounts, and certainly you should be able to remove all the late fees that you may be paying today with those documents being bottlenecked. We can also make sure that a document, if it's overdue, we can notify a user if it is overdue. Let's say if it's sitting for 24 or 48 hours, do auto escalations of those documents or set them as priority when a document comes in, auto extracting via OCR to say, hey, this is a priority document, it's over $100,000. You need to take advantage of that early pay discount. Let's mark it as priority, right? So easy approval denials to move it on. And once those documents have been approved, we really can take it from there and import it into the ERP to create that transaction. And we're going to work seamlessly with the ERP to create those digital transactions within the ERP without having to double enter data. And that's going to save just another massive amount of time with DocLink doing that seamlessly for you. And on top of that, we can one click find and recall those documents from a handful of screens, depending on your ERP. So I go in GP additional view documents. So this is unique to DocLink to find and recall that document directly out of the secure document portal that is DocLink. If I need to make any changes, DocLink is also going to take all those changes and update that document automatically. So you don't have to go back into your filing digital file repository, update that data that you may have changed for whatever reason. DocLink is going to do that automatically for you. So lots of touch points that DocLink is just going to streamline that process for you and just save you a massive amount of clicks and massive amount of time. So you're probably wondering, how did we go through this so quickly? And it's a whole, basically from start to finish AP automation. And DocLink makes it super easy and streamlined. So we were able to go through from start to finish when a document was first onboarded all the way to importing that transaction in to the ERP in about, 2 or 3 minutes. That's really the power of DocLink, going from a paper world into a paperless world and adding some automation on top of that. So something to chew on as you're contemplating AP automation. Hopefully that gives you a good visual into what DocLink can do for you. With that, I'm going to change this back to Parent Lynn, and she's going to talk more about going beyond accounts payable.
Oh, thanks, Mark. I appreciate it. That was powerful stuff. So I get excited every time I see our demonstrations, because I think really at the end of the day, it is about helping companies achieve their strategic initiatives. And generally, those are going to be around cost savings and increasing profits overall. So thank you for sharing that. I thought that was exceptional. All right, so let's now transition into how does it impact other folks in the organization, and what does it mean if you're an accounting manager or a controller, and why is this beneficial from your perspective? And when we're sharing this information, if you are not the accounting manager or controller and you're having to sell up in your organization to say, hey, listen, I think that there are things that we can do to really take action in our organization and provide, better automation, then you can share with them why you think it would be important from their perspective. So we'd like to kind of share what's on the accounting manager and controller's plate, right? What's of interest. It's all about visibility and reporting so they can meet those cash goals, about improved accuracy so they're not having to do rework, right? The employees are not having to do rework. And then, of course, chasing exactly what Mark brought up. Can you now transform AP and go after those early pay discounts or avoid late fees? What would it mean in your AP spend? Like, look at the overall AP spend and just look, what if you could get 25% of an early pay discount? Right? What would that mean? Right, so there's a lot of questions that you can start asking yourselves that will really help the organization overall. So let's dive into a couple of these different areas. So when we talk about visibility and reporting and how DocLink can help in those areas, we really talk about being able to monitor workflow statuses. So as a manager, if you're trying to better manage the overall workload between employees, you can see, who has what documents. If you're needing to take a transaction and move it more quickly through the process, then you have the ability to do that as well. There is a wonderful cradle-to-grave life cycle of all that's happened within the document. From the moment it has arrived in the organization, as it's made the way through what Mark just demonstrated, all the way through coding, approvals, into the ERP, from the payment perspective, all of that is tracked so you know what's going on with that document and the transaction. And it really is all about visibility and control for reporting perspective. So if you are having to fast track invoices in order to hit those financial goals, then you have that opportunity to do that as well. Here's a nice did you know? And I think it's important to take a step back. Now, for those of you that are here on the phone with us today, you already are kind of seeing the need for a solution. But did you know that it was $20 just to file one single document and $120 to retrieve the document? And then if you had to recreate a document, it's $220. So just think about that, because we're not just filing ones and twosy documents. Generally, you're filing numerous amounts of documents, or having to go back to the filing cabinet or some kind of network file share to retrieve a document. And if it's not there, then you have to kind of figure out, all right, where is it in the organization? So imagine that you've got documents at your fingertips, and based on your security, you have access to, all documents that you need in a very, very fast way. So that would really transform the organization. All right, let's kind of talk a little bit now about the other side of the equation. So this is on the quote to cash side. And we're going to focus the demonstration, I think, more on the AR side of the house. But let's just take a look at this. So when we talk about DocLink, we talk about it as an enterprise-wide solution. And I showed you in the beginning how to think about document management in a holistic way. What's the document? That tells us how we can capture it. Does it need to travel through a workflow for some kind of approval? Does it need to impact a transaction, and who needs to search and retrieve it? That's the big picture. So think about this particular side of the house when maybe your organizations are originating a quote out to a customer. So we can capture a quote and automatically send that out to a customer. Maybe it needs to accompany some kind of drawing or some other kind of document. So that's another possibility of deliver. And then that customer PO is coming in. So we need to capture that and maybe put that through some kind of business process in order to validate that what's on that PO is actually something in inventory. And then that's being moved over into the sales order module. So you see, all of this is possible with DocLink because we're just kind of using those 4 powerful questions, in order to capture it, put it through a business process and impact a transaction, and then off we go to search and retrieval. So I wanted to focus on the accounts receivable side of the house simply because that's another strong area and another very popular area where people focus for DocLink. And when we talk about AR, it is about automatically capturing that AR invoice, having other backup documentation in DocLink as well. So at the right time, you're easily able to get those documents collated and systematically send them out to the customer. So it's infinitely faster rather than having to do it on a one-by-one basis and then find that backup documentation, attach it in an email and send it out and then do the same thing over and over. So systematically doing that is an exponential kind of speed factor in the organization. And so we have a fruit and beverage actually manufacturer. And so they deployed DocLink on the AR side of the house as well. And they were able to cut down their AR processing time by 90%. So the whole goal for them was growing without adding additional staff in that particular department. So I think it's really, really powerful. I'm looking at not only that they rolled it out to AR, but then they also, of course, rolled it out to the AP side of the house. And here we are seeing evidence of that extendability side of things. I think the big win for them is that they had a strong need to not only send the AR invoice, but they had a lot of supporting documents that needed to be sent with that AR invoice. So that's really the big win there. All right, let's continue on. So let's again kind of take a peek at what does that mean. It's fine and well when we're able to kind of explain, with our words what that looks like. But I want to have Mark be able to show you exactly what it's going to mean as the end result. What does that look like from an end result of being able to magically have those documents joined together and viewable by your customer to allow them to pay faster? So Mark, let's take a look at what you've got prepared for us on the AR side of things.
Absolutely. And I thought, based on the original poll, that although automated delivery and collation would be important, just to show the extensibility of DocLink, but also, since no one really said that was important to them right now, I wanted to also pivot and say, how about the one of the other options to show the finding important information quickly. So I'm actually going to do two components. I'm going to pivot slightly, if that's okay, to show both, to show the enterprise wideness of DocLink, as well as the how documents are now at your fingertips. So really looking at the that AR invoicing. So think of billings, right? We have invoices that go out on a regular basis. All those are going to be sent out as invoices regularly, once a week, every couple of weeks, whatever it might be. Well, DocLink can capture that, just like we saw the capture of purchase orders using the exact same tools we utilize for purchase orders. So go print it out, and DocLink's going to capture that invoice and then automatically route it based on some metadata. It might be an email from the customer that's already in the ERP and managed that way. Well, DocLink is going to batch all these up. It's going to grab additional documents. We call them supplemental, but it could be really anything. That's your original customer PO. It may be it's linking to the customer. Well, DocLink's going to automatically grab all this when I do that trigger point, which is just printing the invoice and then batching it all up and sending it out. So what the end result is that we're going to, let's just pretend we're a customer real quick. We can actually grab that customer invoice, attach that document to for our customer, grab any other documents that relate. We have a customer PO that just came in via email. So we drag and drop that message file in Outlook right into DocLink. We keyworded it with a customer number, so it gets into DocLink, and that document becomes an automated process along with the invoice to say, great, here's that customer PO that you sent us. Well, that's why you're getting this invoice. It's just a proof of why you're getting billed. Any other document can be linked. If we, maybe there's a statement or some other document, we can attach that automatically. That's document that's in DocLink through this process as well. So I know it's not that important for everyone on the webinar today, but something to show you that you think outside of AR, other documents could be delivered this way for your customers. And beyond that, if we see here, we can actually utilize DocLink as a customer or vendor portal. Imagine your customers or vendors being able to go to a portal, download their invoices directly that way, just create visibility. Have you ever had a supplier or customer call you up and asking for your documents, and you spend a bunch of time trying to find them? Well, now they can do self-service within DocLink, and we can secure those documents for individuals so they can actually view their own stuff. And beyond that, wanted to just show what it looks like from a searchability and grabbing that important information quickly. This is the DocLink portal. It's any user is going to have access to that, and depending on permissions, you're going to have different users have different roles. So we saw workflow, being able to search and retrieve documents. Think your physical filing cabinet is now brought down into this one single portal, and now documents are at your fingertips. We can search and retrieve by really anything, different companies in your organization, however many you have, any document type. Think beyond AP here, your contracts, any barcoded documents, purchase requisitions, HR documents, inventory, whatever it might be, that can be stored into DocLink. And I can search and retrieve by literally any property that we've captured along the way. Think about how long this would take you to do this, what I'm about to do, but I'm going to search on invoices in the system. We're going to switch the operator to say, hey, I want to find everything in the system with an invoice number greater than $10,000. So all we have to do is find our invoice number, document total, there we go, greater than $10,000, and search, right? So imagine going to your physical filing cabinet and doing this. It's almost impossible because you have to look at every single document in every filing cabinet, and now try to do it over a certain date range, right? Now we want to go back exactly 1 year. So go back to October of 2019. It was a simpler time before COVID, all the way to today, and search on those documents, right? Again, this would be nearly impossible, and you may have to, find your documents in Iron Mountain. You pay for that. They bring your documents to you. You pay for that. All your documents are now immediately available for you, and we can search and retrieve in about 2 seconds to find exactly what we want. Super powerful stuff, right? And it's all there for you. So yeah, delivery can be great, but really search and retrieve is first and foremost going to be hugely beneficial and really necessary when you go digital. So something to keep in mind along with delivery as you contemplate, going paperless. All right, with that, I'm going to switch it back to Perry Lynn one more time for her to finish us off here.
You got it. And I'm so glad that you were just talking about kind of the power of search and retrieval and what it means to have documents at your fingertips, because that's one of the number one questions that I get is, can you restrict who has access to what documents? And the answer is yes. And that becomes more and more important as we're working remote and needing to have one place to store everything in the organization, but then separating it based on security. And I always think that HR is a great use case of that kind of metaphor, if you will, so that maybe only the folks that need access to documents can have them, or you're restricting access based on employees. So in order to illustrate that, let's kind of talk about one of our customers. So this is Econo Supermarket. They have 5 stores in Puerto Rico, about 600 employees, and about $110 million in sales. Right? And they're the largest supermarket chain in Puerto Rico as well. And they specifically chose DocLink to help with their AP and, of course, HR automation. And there's lots of things that they can do. But here their challenge is that they had paper everywhere. And they were also moving facilities, and they simply didn't want to take the paper with them. So for them, HR is what they call a just cause jurisdiction. And so they needed to create and manage so many different documents for each of their employees. So for them, they did kind of like 2 major integrations. They did, of course, HR and AP. In HR, they also wanted to kind of track things like resumes and applications and benefit forms and W-4s and I-9s and reviews and payroll steps, just everything, right? And so DocLink enabled them to capture everything in that one central repository. So also, once they were up and running in HR, they were able to deploy it in AP. I think we've talked enough about the AP kind of side of the house, but it does also articulate that extendability of the solution overall. And then lastly, we thought we would also cover a little bit on contract management. This continues to come up in nearly all of the conversations for companies that are trying to go paperless and automate business processes. So when we talk about contract management, it's simply yet another example of where you can use DocLink in your organization. So number one, it is in the storage of those signed agreements. So that may be kind of the first step into this foray of document management. And by having all of those documents, it allows for you to easily search for those documents. Now, here's where we get into some of the extended functionality as well, because you can use things like full text search. So rather than searching by a particular document property, you can now search the entire context of that particular contract. In addition, if you want to use DocLink in conjunction with DocuSign, now you have the ability to route documents out for signature using DocuSign and then bring them back in as well. And then, of course, there are also some contract template features that you can utilize, going after, again, not having to repeat data entry over and over. So there are lots of possibilities. The question really comes back to you as an organization. What are you doing for your contracts today? Where are they being stored? What are the business implications of you doing it manually, right? And this is something that you would want to kind of look to technology to help solve. So we thought we would dive into some of the kind of extended features of the software and just really start helping you see where else this can be applicable. So one of the top features that we talk about is version control. And this not only has implications in contract management, but can also have implications in other areas of the organization where it's really important that you're tracking that version over version change of that particular document. Okay? So let's take a look at what it looks like to do version control. So in this case, we have, are looking for a various document, and we can see quite clearly what's happened with this document over and over and over. Who checked it out, when it was checked back in, what version of this document is now going to be uploaded for complete, use within the system. And then, of course, there's also that digital signature. So this is showing you a little bit of a snippet of what we mean by that DocuSign integration. So the storyline is really as simple as this. With DocLink and DocuSign, you would have the ability to have that document stored in DocLink. It'll be sent out using DocLink. DocuSign is going to capture the signature lines, of that particular document, and then you're able to bring that signed document as well as the certificate of signature back into the solution as well. So really just extending the value overall of the application in and of itself. All right, so what have we talked about? We have talked about a lot of different things, not only about how you can use DocLink on the AP side of the house, in either the generation of a requisition, through the creation of a purchase order, capturing that purchase order and sending it out to the vendor, allowing DocLink to be used as a vendor portal, the onboarding of that invoice all the way through the transaction, and then search and retrieval. And then we also just took a look at HR, extending it to HR, and then contract onboarding and version control, and looking at some full text search and some of those other kinds of things. And there's so much more that DocLink can do in your organization. So it really keeps going back to those 4 questions, which is, where are you feeling the most amount of paper-based bottlenecks and pinches in your organization? So what are the documents that we're worried about? Do they need to go through some kind of business process or workflow? Do we want it to impact a transaction? And then ultimately, who needs to search and retrieve those documents? That's the simple version, but it obviously can be more complex as well. All right, so let's do our last poll, and then we'll kind of wrap it up for today. So question for you. So Melissa, if we can initiate our poll questions, that would be fabulous. And so everyone will see the poll opening up now, and then please play along. I'm curious to know kind of where in your organization are you feeling that you need to drive business process efficiency? So let's see if there's any trends in kind of what we're seeing today. And it may be that you have multiple departments that are looking for automation, which is even better, because then that means that it makes it easier to get approval of that particular project internally. All right, so let's see. Are we getting some results, Melissa? Let me come back to you and see if we've got any results coming in. What's
We
the
do,
trend
and
look like?
the trend is very much into accounts payable.
Okay, well, you know what? 95% of people start an AP. It's probably even higher than that. So it's also a very process that's simple to articulate. So you're not alone. That's where most people start. All right, so let's kind of wrap things up for today, and then we can open it up for a little bit of Q&A. But I thought that what we might want to do is take a look at just, why? Why is DocLink such an important solution to bring to your organization? And I think probably what we could say is the number one is that it truly is an enterprise-wide solution and can manage that entire cradle-to-grave life cycle of a document and have documents at your fingertips. And then we start diving into all the other, really beautiful elements. Do you want to leverage OCR and what we showed you in terms of that automated matching, which can really drive data entry savings and time savings, and that's going to compel your organization forward. That's a great part. Do you need to use a workflow tool set, right, to be able to put documents through a business process? That's a very powerful feature of the application. And then we didn't talk too much about it, although we did kind of hint at it, but you can do all sorts of automation using rules that are important to your organization. Right? We talked a lot about powerful search and retrieval and what it means to organizations to have documents at your fingertips, regardless if you're talking about AP or, of course, throughout the other areas as well. Now, we didn't touch too much on smart forms today, but that's a great use case when you want to start extending DocLink to kind of some other subcategories like expense reports, or what's been very popular recently is ingesting the CSV file from the credit card bank and then putting that through a business process so the end users can attach their receipts to the line levels and then have that transacted as well. So that might be a real key area, especially for those on the AP side of things. Looks like in today's conversation, we didn't have too many takers on automated document delivery, so I'm going to keep on going on that one. But we did talk about that DocuSign electronic signature and being able to kind of keep those contracts in the system and be able to leverage DocLink and DocuSign to get those signed. And I always kind of like circling back that it's an enterprise-wide content management system. So the big question is really about where do you want to go paperless? And it sounds like AP is really where you want to start today. So I think with that, I would like to go into our last poll, Melissa. So I'm going to kind of ask you again to initiate that poll. And this always gives me a little bit of a chuckle. So why are you attending today's webinar? Is it all about knowledge building because you're trying to gain ideas about how to compel or propel your organization forward? Did your boss make you? I think that's really kind of funny. I really like C and D. There's an initiative in my department, and D, we could really use this. We're ready to learn more, so contact me. All right, so I'm going to let that one kind of come about, and I'll come back to you in a moment. And then I think what we're going to do is we're going to open it up for some Q&A. But here is our offer. If anything that we've been talking about today resonated with you, please reach out to your Encore account manager, and they can get you in touch. What we'd like to do is set up what's called a discovery call. It's simply where we all sit down together and we talk about kind of what you're doing today, what are your business goals, and then kind of outline what you're doing in the various business processes. And if we go through that really simple exercise, then it makes it so simple then to give you a preliminary quote in terms of what we think the overall investment would be, and also gear up for a product demonstration that would be more specific to kind of what we had just talked about. And that way we're really honing in on those pieces of the application that are important to you in helping your organization meet your goals. Okay. All right. So Q&A. So Mark, are you ready for all those technical questions? I'm going to leverage you heavily for those ones. All right. So let's see. What are all the questions? Do we have any thoughts about what you've seen or any need for additional information? And Melissa, I'll maybe call on you to help manage the chat as well, if you wouldn't mind.
Absolutely, yes. And nobody answered that their boss made them. So just wanted to, it was all about knowledge.
Oh, good.
That's good to know. Yes, I've got a few questions here. So first one, does this have a vendor portal where vendors can view payment information?
So yeah, I mean, I can take that. Yeah, definitely. Kind of and to kind of go beyond that, simple yes answer, absolutely. But any document that you want your customers or vendors to be able to see will be available in the DocLink web portal. So yeah, it can absolutely be done.
Okay, great. Next one, how are documents saved? Do they get saved on a server or on the cloud?
So either would be the short answer. It's the DocLink can come in two flavors. That's going to be on premise. So if your existing ERP is on-premise today, Docklink can be on-premise as well. And it could be in the cloud as well. So if you're on, D365 in the cloud, Docklink can communicate cloud to cloud, or even in a hybrid model where Docklink's in the cloud, the ERP is on-premise, and the documents are going to reside either on-premise or in the cloud.
Okay, great. Last questions. How long is the average setup time with companies, i.e. configuration, etc.?
It can depend on the project itself. That's the short answer. We can get into that just depending on the modules and the services needed for those, if there's customizations, things like that. But a couple months is what we typically see. 60, 90 days is a pretty typical implementation process.
Okay, great. That's it for questions. I don't know if you guys have anything more you wanted to add.
No, not from our perspective. Thank you very much for spending time with us today. Sure hope it was a very informative session, and we got a little bit of a peek into what's happening in organizations and why it would be important to go paperless today.
Great. Thanks so much to both of you. And have a good afternoon, everyone. Thanks.
Thanks. Goodbye, everyone.